Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for this important discussion. We're going to have a conversation about mental health and the impact that it's having on our youth and the young adults in our communities and schools. Joining me this evening, we have Chandra Albritton, Whitney Gray, and Pastor Gail Smith. And at this time, I'm going to allow each one of them to introduce themselves and just tell us a little bit about why they chose to go into the counseling profession to help those that may be experiencing some difficulties or mental health issues. We'll start with Chandra and then Whitney, and we'll end with Pastor Gail.
Okay, my name is Chandra Albritton. I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been licensed since 2017. I also counsel at Atrium Navicent Health. I've been a counselor there for 17 years, but I wasn't licensed. That was my title. Um, the reason why I chose counseling, working there at the hospital, just meeting families and just
Okay. Um,
was that my Wi-Fi?
yes, but you're back.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's going on down here. Okay, so just working with families there, I saw a need. So many families like counseling. We don't do counseling, especially a lot of African Americans. So
Right.
that's when I started to further my education just to help, families, individuals with counseling and just to make a difference, just to let the individuals or the families know that there are ways to cope with situations and, don't be ashamed to get the help that you need with
Right.
everyday living. And that's what prompted me to further my education and go back to school and get licensed and things of that nature. And counseling is a helping professional, and that's what I love doing.
Okay. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
you're welcome.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney Gray. I've been doing since 2014. I'm sorry. The reason I went to the mental health profession is because I was definitely one of those kids with on the right that said you talk too much. So it just made like the perfect feel for me, honestly. I like being the person that everyone comes to. I kind of always fell into that role. So I feel like I didn't choose this field. I feel like this field chose me. I'm good for having a talk session. So for me, I think my population of choice, if I had to choose, would be juveniles. I love couples therapy. But also, I just kind of like working with teens in general. I have two jobs. I work for Minds Matter, which is out of Tennessee. So I do telehealth sessions through that with all my clients being in Tennessee. And I also work for Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, where I am the supervisor for mental health at the facility I work at. And that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Pastor Gail.
All right. I'm Gail Talbot Smith. I am somewhat like Whitney that I didn't choose counseling, it chose me. Even as a kid, people gravitated toward me wanting wisdom and advice. And so as a young girl, I started helping people and listening to people. And the more I listened, the more I wanted to help. And the more I listened, the more I cared. And it's not a profession for me, it's a ministry and a calling. I began professional counseling in 1991 after training under the National Christian Counseling Association. And of course, as a licensed and ordained pastor, that positioned me to do family counseling and individual and group counseling as well. So it's really been my life's work. And if you ask me what I've done more than anything else, it's been counseling. I would say even more than preaching, I've been counseling. So it's a calling. is what and it's where I feel the divine flow. I just know God is doing something when I'm in a counseling session, formally or informally, whether I'm in a phone conversation with friends and members or co-workers. Anytime I'm in that position to share wisdom and guidance, I feel that divine flow, and I know I'm doing what God has called me to do.
Okay, thank you so much for those introductions. So the way tonight's conversation is going to go is just going to be like a roundtable discussion. I'll ask questions of the panel members and we'll just go one by one. And if you feel like you want to chime in on something, on a question for a particular panel member, just do so at any time. But I just felt like, because we all work with youth and young adults in some capacity on an everyday basis, and looking at the things that they deal with that we didn't necessarily have to deal with at that age, I thought that it would be important to come up with some conversations, some questions that could give them some tools to deal with what they go through every day. They don't really know how to navigate through anger. A lot of them have a lot of anxiety issues. They don't know how to deal with conflict. And on a day-to-day basis, especially when I'm talking with the youth that I interact, the only emotion that they can really articulate is anger. So what is it that we can offer them? What tools can we give them that can help them articulate some other feelings at least, or identify some triggers and some ways to avoid those things that bring out those triggers? So I want to start with something as simple as, what do you do if you're worried about a family member or a friend? You're not sure exactly what it is that they're going through, but how do you even approach a situation if you're concerned that they may be experiencing something that might lead to counseling? And we'll start with Gray.
I think for me, I'm good for hearing a backstory. I like to ask, hey, what are some things that's going on? If, let's just say, the youth, for instance, already displaying some anger that you mentioned, I usually ask what's wrong. And I know that's an easy question, and that's but it's an easy question to ask, a hard question to answer. But I'm good for asking, what's going on? Because that opens the door. Most times they haven't been asked that question, what's going on? How do you feel? What's wrong? How was your day? Sometimes, honestly, they could already have that anger, and we ask how that day is, and that's where the conversation kind of opens from there. So usually I ask that question. With the youth that we work with, they'll push us off. I don't want to talk about it. I'm fine. I'm good. Everything's, whatever. They'll normalize it, make it seem like nothing's wrong. But I'm good for following up with a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have to be creative. Let's talk about this right here, and kind of ease on into that question, just to kind of open the door. It's that trust level. I feel they don't trust us with their response, so they don't initially tell us, because they want to know if we really care what the answer is, and if we give them the answer, what we're going to do with it. So making them feel like it's a safe place, one, but also showing them that little empathy that they really need.
True. And I can think back to one of my principals, Dr. Flagg, would always say, it's all about relationships. And it really is. I don't care what you're doing. It's all about, how did that child feel towards you, or how did that young adult feel towards you? Do she really care? Is she just asking because she's trying to check a box? They really want to know that you're concerned about their well-being. Right. So that is a good starting point with the youth that we serve.
Right. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, and I was wanting to just say also, I started that earlier with my daughter. I would just ask her, so how's your day been? What was funny at school? What happened today at school? And so she started sometimes just get in the car from the pickup line. Mama, this happened at school. This person said. She would just open it, because I started kind of early saying, well, Bailey, who did something funny today? And it was just from an article that I read, and I started using it with her. And I found that using it, when I started doing it earlier on, when she was in high school, she would come and say something, Mama, guess what happened today? Guess what so-and-so said? Guess what so-and-so did? Or this person, so that helped too, just learning, doing it earlier on too. And I'm glad that I read this article about that, just you probe it a little bit, but not really probing, who
Right.
did something funny, what, something like that. So doing that too helps also, learn what is going on in their world and things like that. And now it's almost to the point to where she'll even invite other people to tell me how they're feeling.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I'm very glad I read that article early on and was able to use that to start conversations with her when she was in school. And now, as she's a young adult, she's more open to talk with me now.
Good, good, good.
That's a tool I use as well. Asking, how are you? What's going on with you? And then I kind of do a little probing as they respond, and I get a little opening on a particular subject.
Mhm.
Then my question is going to be, how do you feel about that? If they're explaining something that happened, how do you feel? Or how did that make you feel?
Right.
Or what do you think? Is that there are two things I've always tried to get people to process. What do you think? And what do you feel?
Mhm.
And those are two separate things. And when you're able to get people to do that kind of work, then it sort of automatically opens them up. Sometimes they are discovering themselves because they didn't even know. They knew something was happening, something was brewing inside, but they never considered it was a thought or a feeling. They just knew there was something there.
Right.
So I start putting it in that context of thoughts and feelings, then it sort of opens them up to share in a more targeted way.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good. One thing I encountered, and I'm sure Miss Gray and Miss Smith may encounter also, the youth that we work with, when you ask them what's wrong, their first response is they trying me. What does that look like? What does that even mean? So my next question is kind of, what do you do when they're anxious, when they're dealing with depression, when they're upset, or sometimes they're having suicidal thoughts, but the only way they can express it is to say they're trying me? How do you move them from that to what the real emotion behind that is, and what are you going to do about it to make it better? Just jump in, anybody.
So
Go
first,
ahead.
That's so funny that you said that. Dealt with
Go ahead, Ray.
I think for me, when I hear that you're trying me, I go along with it. You're right. They are trying you. Okay. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Because if I were to, go against them and say, they're not trying you, that wall comes up and now I'm the op is what they would say, right?
Right.
So I see where you are. So you're right. They are trying you. So let's find out what trying you is. Did they tell you that you had to go up? Did they tell you that you can't have your way? Was there a no said? Which is most likely the case. If a no was said, they're trying you. So just kind of talking and processing through that, but also getting them to see both sides. I understand this is what you want, and you probably want it right now, and you want things to go your way. But also I want you to see why they said no, why it can't go your way right now. And then also at the end of the day, I always get them try and remind them where they are and why they're there. They need structure. And believe it or not, that teens actually want structure. With the population we work with, as much as they'll butt heads with you, they'll go against everything you say. It's the ones that realize that you are firm and you're going to stand on what you say and you are going to follow through with what you told them that you were going to do. They respect you way more.
That's true.
So just honestly, let's break down. What does that really mean?
Right.
I just had that situation last week when a kid almost ended up in a fight. And when we got together to talk, that was what he said. I said, what happened? Miss Smith, they trying me. And I said, you know what? I know exactly how you feel because I be getting tried too. And I just got in there with him. I said, I say they be trying me too. And I told them, I said, you think you're the only one being tried because of your age? You've been as old as I am. I'm tried. I said, and as long as you're on the face of this earth, you will be tried. So let's learn what to do when we get tried. Because you can't fight every time you're tried. You can't cuss somebody out every time you're tried. Sometimes you're tried by things and stuff you can't cuss at. So let's come up with some strategies for what to do when we are tried, because it's impossible to control that. And there are going to be times you will feel tried by people who are only trying to help you.
Right.
So let's really talk about some strategies of how to handle being tried. Everybody gets tried, baby. Come on.
Right. And so what are some of those
Their feelings.
when you're getting tried? What is it that we say to them to help them see past that moment? Because, you know, a lot of times it's either they don't see a balance in between. It's either they really high strung or they really focused, but there's no in
They
between.
didn't get what they wanted to.
Right. So how do we reel them back in?
And I think it's like when they say they tried me, in what respect did they try you? Sometimes my daughter can say that now, they tried me. Like, you may post something on Facebook that wasn't true, or going out with somebody that you going out, hanging out with somebody who you just done talked to me about. So I think it's important to learn what is this tried me is that they're talking about.
Right.
And then once you find out what that tried me that they're talking about, then you go from there. Okay, so they talked about this girl and now they're going out with her. So she tried you. So now in that aspect, respect, don't talk about that girl to her, about her anymore. You have to learn the boundaries part of their relationship. So I think the biggest thing when they're saying they tried me, what does tried me mean to you? What are you using this for? What are you saying this for? What grounds are you saying they tried you? Oh, they trying to fight me, or they tried me saying something about me. So I guess just finding out what they're talking about, and then from there you decide what tools to use or how to reel them back in, or how to cope with a certain situation that they're saying tried me.
Gotcha.
So it could be when they saying try, it could be a whole slew of stuff. Oh, they tried me. She's gonna give me more work than Tim. She tried me, So it's a lot of different areas where teenagers use this tried me, or that my mama tried me last night. She gave me told me to warm up some noodles, and then my sister and them, they had pizza. Man, she tried me.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing, finding out what that tried is, and then go from there. Because she may gave you them noodles because you didn't do what she told you to do. So now you don't get none of this pizza, you just eat them noodles. So it's finding out what that tried mean, and then from that point, start talking more about what happened or why you feel they tried you, and then go from there as with how to cope with that. Okay, well, maybe next time to wash the dishes or do what she told you to do, because you don't want her to try you again.
Gotcha. Exactly.
Right.
The next thing I want to talk about is probably a little bit more deeper than what we've started with, but dealing with childhood trauma. It could be for the youth we serve. It could be for young adults. It could be for us, because a lot of us still have a lot of childhood trauma that you may have not dealt with over the years. And then it turns into little triggers. I was talking to somebody really close to me, and we wanted her to dance to a particular song. And when the song played, it was at that moment she realized it was a trigger for something else that was traumatic for her, and she couldn't dance to that song. So can we kind of explain what trauma is and what can trigger a person, and how can they channel that into a positive way? That's not too difficult of a question. I think let's define trauma first.
Okay. So go ahead.
I guess we. No, you go ahead.
Go, Shannon.
Okay, so trauma is a experience that a individual is a person's emotional response to an experience that they have had in their life. A trauma could be a shooting. A trauma could be a car accident. A trauma could be anything that has changed someone's life drastically or over a prolonged time, like sexual abuse, you know, um, what else? Sexual abuse,
Physical abuse.
physical abuse, psychological abuse, anything that this person has experienced and it continues to, I'm going to use this word, hunt them. It's something that they just can't get away from.
Mhm.
That's what I see trauma is. And a way to get a person to cope with trauma that I use a lot here in my practice is to get them to talk about their trauma. Like I tell a lot of them when they come here, they try to hold it in. You're not telling the whole story. If you're seeking counseling, I need to know the story. So it's getting them to start talking about it, getting them to trust me about it because that trauma, it is a lot. And people carry it for years. I see people that's been dealing with sexual abuse by people like their brother, their father, since they were 7, 5, and they haven't cope with it
Right.
because they haven't spoke about it, and then they carry on a lot of emotions that are not good, and it's all because of the trauma that they have experienced in their life. So a trauma is a person's emotional response to something that has happened to them, and it, like I say, it's good for them, it's good for a person with trauma to talk it out. There are tools that we can use. There are specific therapies that you can use to help a person um, cope with it. So, and with trauma, I find also that they have a trigger. There's a lot of triggers to that. It could be a TV show. They may say that TV show was on when my dad touched me. So now when that music of that TV show comes on, it haunts me. It makes me cry. It makes me sad. So that's what trauma is, and with those triggers. So it's helping them to kind of cope with that. Okay, so if this TV show is coming on, change the channel, or leave the room. If you're sitting down with somebody, you're at their house, oh, I got to go use the bathroom. That's the things that we learn, how to
Right.
deal with trauma. One of the things, because it's a lot of different therapies that you can use with trauma, but I like to start with simple things first and then elevate to other traumas that can be used when you're trying to get someone to cope with them.
Okay. Good. Anybody else want to chime in?
I think she explained it really well.
Okay. Now, do we think our young adult and youth always know their triggers? Or
No, they
I've seen classroom situations or personal situations that happen and they don't realize that it's triggering for them?
I don't think anybody always knows the triggers. I think that's a matter of soul work and personal reflection and introspection to learn what your triggers are. I don't think it's all that automatic, because once you continue on the journey of life and you're having various kinds of experiences, it all just kind of gets all balled up and meshed together, and by the time you get done mixing all of life together, you really don't know what you started with. It's like like the ingredients in a cake. Once you mix it all up, you don't taste the eggs separated out anymore, or this separated out as much anymore. It's all blended together. And a lot of times that's what happens with trauma and triggers. And that was an article that came out yesterday in the New York Times, and I think it'd be really, really great if people would check that out. The name of it is, What If Kids Are Sad and Stressed Because Their Parents Are? And I think one of the issues a lot of children and young adults face is they are carrying the pain and the load either with their parents or for their parents. They are feeling what their parents have been through. They are experiencing the trauma that their parents have been through. I did a class one time about adult children of alcoholics, and it was amazing to hear how many children, how many adults were carrying the pain of their parents' addictions. But let me just share this one sentence from the article. It says, just as parents are upset about their children's anxiety and depression, children are anxious about their parents' mental health.
That's very true. Very true. And I just saw somebody's comment that said a lot of our childhood traumas may come from, I feel a lot of us have childhood traumas because of the way our parents were raised, and they use those same methods on us. Triggers are real and they have to be approached carefully. And that's very true.
Yes.
Because a lot of times they only teach you what they have learned. It may or may not be right.
Right.
But it's really true when people say a lot of times parents give you the best that they have because they don't have the tools that we're looking for. Right. And earlier, another person said that in order to get someone to open up about their traumas, you might want to start sharing some of your trauma and they'll feel more comfortable. And I've seen that play out too. At least start a conversation about a particular trauma and a situation, and then more than likely, especially one-on-one, they'll open up to you. Now, I know we have to be careful when we're dealing with juvenile and those under 18, but if you just open a little door and they know that you understand, they really will talk to you. They really do.
I think it's good if they understand trauma is not a unique experience. It's not out of the norm. It happens to so many people. You know, there are different types of trauma, but trauma is common. It's common.
It's just all how you deal with it.
Right.
That's what a lot of our kids are lacking. What do they do when they're dealing with a trauma or a trigger? How do they take a moment to really rationalize and calm themselves down, or think of something that's not as definitive as shooting somebody? What else can I do in this moment when I'm so upset?
I think people have to understand how expansive the impact of trauma can be. For instance, I don't have to have experienced the pain. It could be, I couldn't take the way my sister got a whooping. And that traumatized me. Right. She was the one who experienced the trauma directly, but it impacted me as well. So those, and I'm not giving a testimony, I'm just giving an example right now.
Sorry, could you?
But anyway, I just wanted to share that people need more information, and that's something we've got to talk about in African American communities and churches. We have to talk about trauma. We don't like to talk about it because if we really go there, then a lot of parents will find out some of their parenting methods were really trauma. and their children will discover, oh, that was trauma. What yeah, or it might have been a book. you know. So yeah, it can be eye-opening to the extent that it makes people uncomfortable. And I think we shy away from some of those conversations because of that.
I think you said something real important. You said the parents might realize that they may have contributed to that trauma. And I think blame is like a lot of it. Sometimes if we talk about trauma, someone caused that trauma in some type of way. Multiple factors may have played a part of that person having that trauma. But if we ask about it and we be the parent, it might be like, oh, well, I blame myself for not being there. I blame myself for not protecting you. I blame myself for doing this or putting you in this situation. So for some, it may seem easier if I just shy away from it. If I don't ask too much questions. I know it's there, but I may not ask too much questions or get too deep, and we can't really talk about it. Like you said, in the African American community, it's because that blame is going to come and I feel responsible for hurting you. Well, instead, we should look at it on the other side and say, okay, I did this to you. I'm sorry. I messed up. They did this to you. Let me get you some help. Let me try and help you better process this so we won't have to go through our life dealing with this trauma, pushing it on somebody else or hurting someone else. That saying is real true. Hurt people. So rather than build these years of hurt, continue this toxic journey on, we don't give the people the resources. We don't give them those conversations. We don't open that door to shed a little light on those dark situations and get them the help they truly need.
That's true. So true.
We don't want to have those hard conversations.
Right.
We need to have at some point to help them get past that. What I want to right now is if you can give one tool that could improve someone's mental health, what is one thing that they could do immediately that would help them move into a positive place? I know everything can't be changed immediately, but what is one little tool that they could start using that could help them make better choices or
positive affirmations?
Positive affirmations? Okay.
That's a good one.
Tell you to love yourself. The more you love upon you, the more you pour into you. I feel like it helps.
Right. Okay. Self-care. Right. Self-care. Staying positive. Learning new ways, learning new things, new activities. Doing something different. That helps as well.
Okay.
But yeah,
I see some good things in the chat. Positive music, affirmations.
Right, affirmation.
Journaling is really good.
Right.
I think you can never get past talk.
Right.
Talk it out.
Yeah.
Learn how to express what you are feeling and thinking. I think sometimes people believe they're supposed to carry the pain alone, so they don't talk about it. And in some families, they teach their children, you don't talk about what happens in this house.
Right.
What happens here stays here. And if it's not said directly, sometimes the culture of the family is of such that the children understand we can't talk about what happened at home. And it's important that people are able to talk. If you feel you absolutely can't talk, journal. But you got to get it out some kind of way. You have to articulate the pain. And that's what happens with trauma. People tend not to articulate the pain. They act it out rather than talking it out.
Right. Okay, we're down to the final question. What's one thing you would say to encourage? This person may need some counseling. What's one thing you would say to encourage them to seek the counseling that could help them? I know a lot of times we say we can talk to our friends and things of that nature, but at a certain point, what can we do to encourage them to seek somebody higher than us? Oh, this is a good point. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Dr. Flagg says secrets make us sick, and that's really, really true. When you can't be honest and when you can't tell the truth about something over a period of time, it really can make you sick.
Right.
So rather than be sick, what's something we can do to encourage them to seek the counseling that they need?
Just telling a person, especially if you see over time that this person is acting or being sad, depressed, just approach them. I'm concerned about you. What can I do for you? Being a support person for that person, just making it aware that, hey, I see a difference in you. I see you're not the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just approach them and say, is there something I can do? Is there something that I can help you with? And then being that support person. And from there, offering counseling or being that listening ear yourself.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
I'm good for saying talk to somebody. I'll say talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be me, but talk to somebody. Everybody needs a person. Is I'm good. I tell the boys that at work all the time. Everybody needs a person. I have a person. My person I have a person, and guess what? That person may not be me, and that's okay. Because they're my safe space, and that person is their safe space, and that is okay. But guess what? I'm getting it out. I'm talking to that person. They're getting it out. They're talking to somebody. So I would say talk to somebody. Everybody needs to
talk to somebody.
Right. I think as a people, we have to remove the stigma of going for therapy.
All right.
Getting help, getting mental health support. We have to remove that stigma. And the way I always explain it, there's no difference in going to a therapist than going to a medical doctor. The doctor deals with the physical health. The therapist deals with the mental health. And sometimes they flow together. But it is so important that we get the treatment we need, and there's nothing wrong with it. Mm-hmm. There have been times in my life I have needed therapy, and I went. Mm-hmm. And I have no regrets about it. It made my life better. It helped me overcome some things that I needed help in overcoming. Sometimes you get stuck, and it doesn't matter how much learning you have, how many experiences you have, how well connected you are. We all get stuck sometimes in these different areas of life and need some help with overcoming that place. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with therapy and mental health support. And I encourage anybody who is listening right now, if that is your need, reach for it. That's your need, go for it. Get the help you need. It is important. Your mental health will impact your physical health and your social health, your financial health, your spiritual health. It will impact all areas of your life. And it's important to get that help, get that support that you need. You got a good therapist on here right now. Chandra is very good.
Thank you.
I know this is not an infomercial for her, but feel free to reach out
Thank
to
you.
her. You have Whitney on here. Reach out to them. Did y'all hear me say don't call me though? I'm giving you these other folks. But I encourage anybody. Mary Ann Jefferson said, suppression leads to depression. That is so
right.
Get that stuff out. Sometimes you cannot talk to friends because your friends don't know how to help you. Right. Sometimes they haven't helped themselves. So they are certainly not the people you need to talk to. That's not the ear you need, but you need an ear that can help you, that can support you, that can open your understanding and give you the tools you need to overcome the issues that have arrested you in what area of life you find you have a need.
Mhm. And right before we end, I remember when I decided to go to counseling, one of the very first things that she had me do, and it changed my entire outlook on life. I was dealing with a particular situation. She had me to go and write a letter to all the people I needed to address in that particular letter and read that letter out loud. It was the hardest, most difficult thing I've ever did. You're not reading to the people, you're just reading to yourself or to the therapist. And then you rip that letter up. That was the best experience ever after you get through all the crying and all that stuff. But to rip it up, it really was like a freeing aspect to help you move to a different part of your life that you could let go all of that heavy weight.
Mhm.
And so that's the one thing I would tell people, and I've told people that before. If you can't do nothing else, write a letter addressing all of that trauma, all of that hurt and pain, read it out loud and rip it up or burn it, whatever you have to do. And that can help you start the beginning of a new you.
Right.
Yeah.
At this
I
point, I
love
want to
that.
thank everybody. Oh, you had something to say, Whitney? Go ahead.
No, I was saying I agree with you.
Yeah. I really appreciate each and every one of my panelists this evening. I thank you for all these wonderful comments that I see in the chat. We didn't get a chance to get to all of them, but I didn't want to take up too much of everybody's evening. I just felt like this was an important subject we needed to talk about. It's 2023. It should not still be taboo to talk about mental health because mental health affects every other part of your life. So
And
this
it
is
does.
especially with our kids, our young people, our young adults. They're so anxious. They have all these things going on inside of their head and they don't really know how to deal with it. So if you're listening today and we said one positive thing that helped you, or if you learned something that you're able to carry on to the next person, we would really appreciate that. We thank you for your time this evening. And we just ask that as we go our separate ways, that you have a great evening. And I plan to do this at least once a quarter. We'll talk about different topics that could help our community and that could help those that listen to us. We've got voices. We need to just put it out there so that they could hear it. This is recorded, so if you know a loved one that needs to go back and listen to it later, they'll be able to get to it on Facebook or YouTube. They're able to listen to it at any time. Thank you so much for your evening, your attentiveness, and your willingness to help. Any closing remarks?
I just want to say how important counseling is. I know we said earlier, that it affects your whole body.
Mm-hmm.
High blood pressure, which can lead to stroke, heart attack, kidney failure. So it's very important to get the help you need. I mean, Macon has tons of counseling. Central Georgia has tons of counseling. And, some people do them for free, pro bono. Get the help. It's here, it's available. I'm here. If you're not able to pay for it, I give you a couple of sessions for free. But yes, it's very important to get the help that you need. Even young adults, talk about, instead of picking up a gun and thinking you're bad and regretting later what you did, because once somebody's dead and gone, dead, I mean, that's it. There's no coming back. So learn how to deal with anger. Learn how to deal with grief. With grief, there comes anger. Teens could be dealing with the death of a father and they don't know nothing else but to hurt someone. Get a gun and get with the gang family. So it's very important. Counseling is very important. Some people think it's that taboo. You're crazy. No, you're not crazy. You're seeking the help that you need. You're seeking the peace. People come and I feel peace now. Or I didn't know I could do this, but you can. So most importantly, seek counseling if you need it. The help is here in Miller, Georgia.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I think I would just say, choose you. Mental health, you choosing you. So make yourself, work on yourself, and choose yourself. So that's my little tidbit.
Thank you.
I agree with
Very
that.
important too.
And we need to be intentional about living the best life we can live. And
Amen.
our mental health is part of it.
Mhm.
We
Right.
want to live well. We want to enjoy the time that we have here. And we want to enjoy love and healthy relationships. And we can do that when we get the help and the support that we need. If you need
Right.
it, reach for it. You're not crazy if you do. You're crazy if you don't.
If you don't, right.
Okay, thank you so much. And remember, mental health matters at all costs. It really does matter. Thank y'all so much. Have a good evening.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good evening. Bye-bye.